Welcome to Breaking Through the Contradictions. Here we openly discuss various contradictions and challenges that we pass on and also teach our children that, if not addressed, will impact the individual development of each child. We will explore the topic, share pertinent information, and provide ways for you and I to take action. We look forward to you joining our conversation. So let's get started. The views and opinions expressed by the guests, speakers, and participants in this context are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the organizers, hosts, or any affiliated individuals or organizations. We encourage open dialogue and diverse perspectives, but the individual viewpoints shared during this discussion are personal and should not be attributed to any collective entity involved. I'm always giggling about myself. There's some strange things that be happening in the background. That's all. Hello, ladies.
Hello. Wait, I thought we had a couple more seconds. I was like, oh, 5. Oh, no, we're on.
Because I'm strange. It's all right.
It's the Tabitha countdown.
Yeah. Actually, because I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do 10 seconds anymore. And I just chopped it.
Well, it's a good thing I wasn't going 5, 4, 3.
Right.
I think it's just a way to make everybody think about what's happening. That's
right.
All. Just like, what's happening?
It grabbed the attention, that's for sure. I love it.
Look, that's the goals in life. That's the goals. So, ladies, I know I've been out for the week, and I come back now because I don't know. I did not feel well, and I have to say, we cannot tell our children to take care of themselves and do self-care and do those things for yourself, and you don't do them your own self. So when I ran into a problem last week, I was like, oh, tap out. Yeah. Because it was time. So I needed to do that. So I do thank you for your patience and the time you're spending with me. So this is already awesome. All right. So ladies, you ready to have that conversation?
Oh, the bill. Back to the bill.
We're back. We're back. We're back to this, right? Because my thing is the House Republican funding bill kicks teachers out of classroom, takes away job opportunities, and harms women and children. So one of the first things I'm going to say with this, I know this is the second time we've talked about it here, but because it impacts and touches so many arenas, we're going to be having this ongoing conversation because until it passes, we still have options. And I think that's what I want to make sure that anybody who's listening and paying attention and any of the parents know that until it passes, we have options. And now is a good time to actually exercise our options or evaluate what options we're willing to go ahead and accept. So that's the one thing I want to make sure that we're clear about. But the other thing is I want to start with Christine, because Christine was not here the first time we had this discussion. So I'm very interested in understanding your position as to how you see this bill and what do you think is going to be what's important here. What do we got?
So the first time that I heard about this bill, I was in a professional development in Washington, DC area, and they were discussing how this bill was going to be affecting our professional development opportunities, and we were not going to be able to have any more of these professional developments if this bill goes into effect. So as I was listening to you, we were talking about the options, but I also think we have an obligation to talk about this as educators and people that are advocating for our children and for the safety of our schools, because if we just talk about safety, and we can unpack this from a safety standpoint, we have a huge issue here. So they're going to be taking teachers out of classrooms. We already know that our classrooms are overloaded and our teachers are overworked. What are the implications of that, even just from a safety standpoint? That is very scary, because they are talking about kicking out 220,000 teachers out of the classroom. Okay, So I was like, does that mean current teachers are in the classroom or teachers that are certified to teach? What are we taking a look at? Because teachers are leaving in groves. So we already have, and I'm going to go quote unquote a teacher shortage. We do not have a teacher shortage. We have a teacher retention issue. I'm going to repeat that. We have a teacher retention issue. We do not have an issue with a lack of teachers. Now, given that, I am going to tell you we have an issue coming up. We have an issue with having teachers going into education in the first place now. So now we're going to end up, so we have a retention issue. Now we're going to end up with a teacher shortage because they're not going into the field anymore. Yep. So we have kind of like a double whammy in the United States currently that's happening. So this bill, what it's going to do is we're taking, our we're taking our axe, and we're chopping down that tree. This one is going to be like the little finger, and it's going to go push right over, and everything is going to tumble over if we are not diligent, and if we don't all do our parts as citizens. It's our responsibility as a citizen, whether we have children in our system or not in the system, to be educated on what laws are coming into effect, and the education system will dictate our businesses and our society as a whole, our crime. And so I can go on a tangent. I'm going to stop right there. There's a lot to unpack.
Okay. So, and I'm glad you said that. So here's my thing. We do this all the time and we have these conversations. My voice is going to be raspy because just keep in mind, I'm just trying to get over some crud. 4 million teachers across the United States. 55% of them want to quit. That is 2.2 million. But then you go ahead and take 200,000 teachers out of the classroom.
Right.
So the reason why I did the math is because sometimes the numbers don't lie, right? And what we do is we hide from the metrics. When the metrics does not give us what we're looking for, we have a tendency to run away from it. We say, no, that can't possibly be it. Let's make fluffy clouds. And so we can always pretend that the world is going to be utopia regardless, right? But that's not true, because let's be very clear. Currently, right now, there's a complaint or consistency in communicating that there is a teacher shortage. There is not a teacher shortage. I've met too many of you who have transitioned away from teaching because of those behaviors inside those organizations. One. The second part of it is that if for one moment, all these teacher unions finally get together and say they're not listening, and 55% want to quit, even if you get half of that to leave the education, it will cripple education as a whole. And we're already experiencing that now based off of what challenges that the schools are having. So for you to put something forward to say that you know that you are wanting to take 220,000 teachers out of the classroom is a direct impact and saying, we do not care about the child's education. We do not care about the fact that they will not be able to get jobs. We don't care about this. And here's the thing. Teachers say they need more money. You just need to stop giving more work and not compensating that behavior. That's how you're going to retain them. But if you keep pushing people further away, why would anybody stay and work for free? Just because we like what we're doing does not mean that we want to work for free. So right. That's not okay. So my thing is that parents have a choice now, but wait, our policymakers and the people who have encouraged this, I'm concerned. What are we doing? And what is the reasoning? We don't have enough. The school year started with a bunch of subs in classrooms, and parents were upset because their kids were going to school for a couple of weeks and never opened up a book, never got any piece of instruction because there were all these subs. Is that where we're going with our education?
Well, we have people leaving mid-year too. I mean, it's not just starting the year with subs, but I know a specific school here in the area where I live in North Carolina, I know of at least 4 teachers that have left since the start of the school year because they don't feel supported. Many of them, 2 of them were brand new right out of college, and 3 months into the job walked away and said, I can't do this. This is not worth, moving forward. And then 2 retired early. It's just, we're pushing people away continually over and over and over again.
So Kristen, you've been teaching now for a while. Have you ever heard of teachers ever leaving during their contract time? Because we have a contract from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So this is
unless it's an emergency.
Right. And so within the last couple of years, you're seeing that more, that teachers don't feel like they need to stay even for their children. They're like, nope, I'm done. And you would never have ever seen that before. And teachers have. And
that's a valid point. I never would have thought about that, but I never would have considered leaving in the middle of the school year. Even the last year I was in the schools, it was an awful, horrible year for me. However, I never considered not finishing the school year.
Because you have a my job in the middle of the year any day of the week.
Right.
Because if you have bad behavior, I'm not going to sit and stay. However, I can see why, because when you parent one, you parent them all, kind of a thing, right? So as a teacher, Kristen, you do not have children.
No,
but you have
babies,
75 children, because you were gifted that. You were gifted the co-parenting position for all of those families, right? Christine has children and she was gifted 75 children. So now she has to parent her own, and then she has to parent, and she's been gifted the opportunity to co-parent with a bunch of these families. So when you're doing that, you're saying, I love this child. Children know how to love in a way that adults forgot. And so when you get around them, you're just like, oh, they're so sweet, even though he has those devil horns. But he is so sweet. I love him. I want to see the best for him. And that's why you wouldn't want to leave. And I never thought about it, because I just say, for me, oh, we want to be crazy? I'm out. And go. But you guys, that's pulling at your heartstrings, right?
Oh yeah.
So
and there's so many, like, well, I can't leave because of the kids, and even that next year, then it's okay. Well, yes, especially as a special education teacher, my kids never left me. Like I had kids that stayed with me for 3 or 4 years. So I never had that year where, okay, everybody moves on and I don't have, a set group. And that to me was really hard, because it made it really difficult. I kept thinking, okay, well, when my 3rd graders are finished with 6th grade, then I'm going to leave. And then that would happen and I wouldn't go.
I don't know how that works.
So we're talking about children's behaviors too. I'm going to need to talk about that. So one of the ways that we help our children's behaviors is through social emotional learning, SEL. So SEL has kind of gotten a bad rap, but it's really not, should not be getting a bad rap, because we're helping the child being able to have control over their emotions and teaching them how to self-regulate. That's really what social and emotional learning is for. This bill eliminates that totally, the social emotional learning. We also know after COVID, our children are having more troubles with social emotional learning. So here, this is a recipe for disaster as well, by eliminating that. And last week we discussed about children, and I think Tabitha, you had mentioned that a teacher said, don't worry about those 5 children in the classroom. Well, guess what I did? After we were talking, I was like, 5 doesn't sound so bad. I've been teaching over 30 years. Do you know what that total puts us to? 775 children plus that have just fallen through the cracks.
That is my point.
Go, I don't worry about that 5. That 5 in my classroom, they're going to be, that's not worth it. Over 775 students that would have fallen through the cracks under my own care. And that is our responsibility. So I did want to make sure that we mentioned that, because that was important.
Yes. So let me help. Let's do the math. Right?
Okay.
You ready? Because I'm telling, this is the part where everybody gets caught up. And so, because this was done to me, and I'm going to tell you, I was extremely disappointed because it's a way to tilt the numbers in your favor. So you said in 30 years, 750 students would have fallen through the cracks under one teacher. Yes.
775. And that's
Okay.
like given like an average of 25 students.
That's fine. So 775 in 30 years. Multiply that. We'll just say by 250 teachers. That is 193,750 students that fall through the crack. That is significant because that is an whole entire employment group. That is your manufacturing teams. That's your engineering teams. That's your worker. That's your electricians, your carpenters, your truck drivers, all of them. So you mean to tell me, if you think about that, you have the reason why we can say it's those groups is because if they're not educated, if they don't get their reading skills or reading the math skills up by a certain point, and you push them, and then somebody else pushes them, and then someone else pushes them, they lose all of that. The likelihood of them being an employee in a higher ranking position becomes less than, right? So you're 775 in 30 years, but that only did 250 teachers. Put it at 2 million teachers doing that.
So what about and then what happens when we eliminate that social emotional learning grant? That's going to be an issue.
Well, and then you have the teachers that, no matter what, there's going to be more than 5 that they're ignoring because they're just there to teach and go home. They're not, and to no fault of their own, with the amount of things on teachers' plates, a lot of teachers these days say, I just can't take on another thing. And when you've got all these kids that have needs and the needs are increasing, like we said, especially since COVID, then what? Then how do you as a teacher still reach all of those different students successfully? And I think a lot of teachers are starting to just say, it is what it is. I'm going to show up, do my job, and go home. And if they get it, they get it. And if they don't, I did my job.
Did you really?
I tried to do my job.
I don't know. Did you really? Okay. So this is where I'll go back to. So let's break down the reasons why social emotional learning seems to be a point of contention for those who want to see it eliminated. So why exactly do they want to remove social emotional learning? When they said that they don't want to, Kristen, they actually said to you, that's no longer needed, right?
It's not a priority right now. I was told it was no longer a priority, that the math scores were more important than the social emotional needs of the children. And that basically, whether I understood or not, it was just the way the district was moving. And 3 months after my job was done away with, they did away with the remainder of the entire SEL program because we had a change in our Board of Education. And the Board of Education voted to throw the curriculum out and no longer require it to be taught. So there were 6 coaches and somebody that oversaw all the coaches that all lost their positions, in addition to people like me who were in specific schools helping. And we all were, told you can go back to the classroom if you want, but you don't have a job anymore.
So this is what I'll say. So that all of the social media group is up there having to answer to privacy and health risks, mental health challenges with the students. All those children who kill themselves because of social media, right? Now everybody's like, well, it's not their responsibility, it's the parents. Well, when you make laws that take the parents' ability to do their jobs away, then it becomes your responsibility to ensure that everything that my child has access to has a certain level of privacy associated with their health, well-being, and future. That's your responsibility because you've taken away my ability to parent properly. Because for me, So my children, when I gave them phones, I didn't give them a smartphone. I gave them a flip phone. I wasn't playing with you. I didn't want, and when it was time for them to watch porn, I showed them that this is they don't watch porn, right? Type of a thing. It wasn't porn. It wasn't like that. But the point is that when I wanted them to see naked bodies, I showed them what I wanted them to see versus them finding it on the internet and exploring it that way. That's kind of what that was about. But I'm just, so when we break down social emotional, I'm not forgetting the learning. I'm saying social emotional. Stop. When we do not address our social emotional challenges, how to manage our feelings and things like that, really strange things start to happen, like mass shootings. I'm upset because you hurt my feelings. I don't understand. So now I want to see you gone. But gone in my 5-year-old mind, or my 7-year-old mind, and my 12-year-old mind may not be permanent. I just need the pain to stop, right? That's kind of where that goes. The other part of that is that I watched a little girl on the news say, because they put in, Houston IC put in this program called, what do they call it? Start with an N. But whatever it is, it's a new way of them teaching. And some parents like it because it's structured. And they put that thing on, I call it the metronome. That one tick, 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 tick. And they're saying they're trying to get the kids on rhythm. They have a certain amount of time to get these things done, and they're put in there. So the one little girl that was talking about it, she was holding back tears, I guess, and she was very upset. I feel like I'm running out of time, and oh my gosh, and this is not right, and nobody's listening to me. On the flip side, you had other kids who are like, nope, this is good, and the moms are like, they need that structure. They need to go with that, right? Here's what I'm going to say. I remember time tests, and we still survived it. The time test helps you to keep rhythm and pace. They've been out of pace for so long that they do not understand what that pace is. Because I used to say to my children, walk like you got a purpose. Come on, move like you got a purpose.
We say that too.
They just walk, they just be nosing around like they got all the time in the world. I'm like, look, friend, I got stuff to do. I'm going to need you to move like you got a purpose. Let's go.
Yeah, I like that.
That timing thing. So that's what she needs to learn, to manage her feelings. I don't like this class because of this, and I know I have to do it, and this makes me sad. Mm-hmm. You can use your words, but the bottom line is you still have to do the task,
right?
But they don't. But at some point in time, they fight back, and a lot of the social emotional learning that we need to provide to our young people are associated with how they tackle tasks and challenges in their lives. And if we don't teach them, if I've only get an hour or 2 hours a day with my children, I don't have the bandwidth to teach them all of that without the support of my co-parenting, which is a school. So how do people overcome that? Seeing that the school says it doesn't matter,
right?
But you still know that you need that in our lives.
Yeah, I look at where we're headed to as a society, and then the attention span of our students and their the resiliency that we have to work on building. Years ago, they were much more resilient, but now they're doing video games, and everything is so fast paced, and the TikTok videos, all of that. Our students are expecting instant gratification, or if they can't get it, it's knocking their self-esteem down, where they're melting down if they can't get something right away, and then they're thinking that they can't do it. So it snowballs when those things are not addressed in our classroom setting too.
Yeah.
So
since it's been out, have you noticed a difference in the students?
Me or
either
Kristen?
One of you?
Yes, I've noticed a difference. I've noticed a difference. So I would say probably within like the last 10 years, it's probably been the most major changes, but I work with the little children. So I work with kindergarten students. So I'm going to be seeing societal changes the first. the first on the block. So like right now, some of like the high school teachers are seeing, it later, but I'm seeing exactly what's happening as society is changing, and their lack of attention span and their social emotional learning, their ability to sit and wait for tasks. I used to be able to put things out right after lunch and they would come around and they would sit and we would start our math activity. Now I have to do social emotional learning to calm their bodies down, to take a break and to recenter themselves enough for them to accept the direction after lunch. So it's taking a little bit more, and I'm having to incorporate the social emotional learning more, and how to um, for them to feel what it feels like when they're upset and how to catch it and how to self-regulate. So I'm working on that a lot more. Um, as a whole group, I've noticed over the last several years, I've noticed anxiety levels upticking.
Yep.
So they're very anxious about new things that are happening. And it's just not one group of children. It's, I've seen it steadily increasing, and the anxiety levels seem to be much, much lower several years ago. Are you noticing anything like that, Kristen?
Yes. I'm seeing, with, especially since most of my last 10 years or so has been middle school and high school, a huge uptick in inability to regulate. Like you were saying, self-regulating is out the window. Kids don't know how to calm themselves down. They don't have those coping strategies. But in addition to that, the number of kids that have such an increase in anxiety because the amount of societal pressures that are put on them, and it's one end or the other. It doesn't necessarily have to be academic pressures.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, just be, the negativity in the, in the neighborhood of, pressures to join a gang, or, pressures to get involved with things that they shouldn't be doing. And the number of children that are needing more and more support at school because of that anxiety, and teachers, a lot of teachers, and what people in general tend, it's getting better with time. The stigma is wearing off, but everybody, if you don't have real bad anxiety, you tend to say, oh, everybody has anxiety. Yes, everybody does have anxiety, but not everybody has an anxiety disorder. And there is a drastic difference.
Yes.
The number of kids that are diagnosable now compared to when I started working with 504s back in 2012, 13, we saw a 300% increase in 5 years in our number of kids that had plans created for them. Part of that was people figuring out and learning, the system and knowing how to get a plan in place, but also the number of kids being diagnosed was going up so much. So yes, I mean, just every age group, I'm seeing it more and more and more.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for that. So, okay, so we talked about the children, right? You two are experts. You have seen it firsthand, what it looks like with SEL and what it looks like without SEL. And you recognize that you are part of the solution for it, not the total solution. So parents and families have to do their part at home, as well as school has to do their part at school in order for that student to have 2 out of 3 of the, supporting parts to help them. Because in the community, let me explain. The community people are like, well, you have to build your community. Yes, you do. Because if you don't build it, they will build their own. And when they build their own, it will not include your value systems. Let's be very clear. Children are able to build their own village because they don't like us. They think that we're stupid and all this other stuff. Because as children, we just want to get out and have fun. We don't realize that our fun costs, right? And so we need to be mindful of that. But the reason why I say what I'm leading into is that we talk a lot about the children, but social emotional learning actually impacts the adults too. So now, what have you noticed and seen from the adults before and after SEL?
Well, you said at the very beginning, 55% of teachers want to leave. That was not that way before. And the increase in behavioral issues that we've seen across the board has kind of been that straw that broke the camel's back. We've always had so much to deal with, but now we're actually getting physically hurt at school by children, or, dealing with kids verbally abusing us all day long. And teachers are saying, that's it. I'm done. This is not acceptable. But the one other part that I wanted to mention before I stop talking, because I know I can get on my rampage, SEL is taking care of people's basic human needs. If you are worried about where your meals are coming from, or if you're going to have your mom home when you get home from school, or if there's things going on that you're, dealing with, you can't sit down and learn math or English or reading. And that's something that a lot of teachers are having to change their mindset and say, hey, like Christine said, until I handle my kids' social emotional needs, they're not going to be able to sit down and learn. I need to address these issues at least enough to make them feel safe enough that they can put it to the side and be able to learn for the day. But they've got to know that somebody's got them in order to even be willing to buy into learning.
I agree.
So I would piggyback off of what Kristen said too. So teachers are leaving due to the students, but it's also due to the uptick with our workload. So the expectations are such that we can't complete our work. So it's very trying. So you're trying to figure out the best way to prioritize, and which things are going to be things that we have to get done, and how to figure out how to work collaboratively with others to share the workload, so that way we are not bogged down and taking home work, because teachers invariably they take work home and they work long hours after their day, and then they decide that they're going to go ahead and take work home on the weekends. So we really have to be thinking about how we're going to be working smarter and not harder, because even though the workload is increasing, there are ways that you can figure out how to still meet your children's needs while working within the time frame that your school day allows. It takes some creative ways of doing it, but it is manageable. So those would be some of the things that we need to take a look at. The other thing is that Kristen and I came up with a book. We wrote it together called Bridging the Educational Gap Between Home and School. So that is one of the things actually in our book. It does talk about the social emotional learning and how to work together to help meet their children's needs at home. And we're also going to be doing a parenting class that will also help with that.
I'm having all kinds of technical.
It's okay.
I saw the title come up, and then I saw a couple other things, and we've talked about a lot of them.
I'm pushing buttons. Every time I push a button, something else pops in the wrong place, and I was like, that's not what I'm trying to click. All right, bridging the educational gap between home and school. I believe that this is a very important book, because at the end of the day, you recognize that there, as teachers inside the classroom, you noticed that there was a gap between home and school, and you were willing to answer it by saying, this is how you get back into our classrooms. Parents, this is how you get back in the classroom, because we've been excluded as parents from the classroom. I remember going and saying, okay, I remember a teacher saying, we're not getting the support from our parents. And I was like, okay, I'll show up. What can I do? Right? What can I do? How will I do this? Things like that. They're like, no, we don't want you help. What? I'm confused. So I walked away. So then later on, I come back and I say, they said, we're not getting support from their families. And I was like, okay, you can't have this both ways. I don't know what you want. So I want to volunteer. I'm willing to read to some children. I'm willing to not be left alone with them, but hang out with you a little bit and do some things, right? But you're telling me no. So who is it that you're looking for? So it's really hard for parents to try to get to be a part of their child's education when we're told that no, you're not you're not welcomed here. We don't want you here. And that's just wrong. So I don't know. I have a hard time with that.
So part of our program is twofold. So it's working with the teachers and how to work with the parents and giving them some tips, because we do need parents to help us out. And then also working with the parents and doing that. We also have a Venn diagram that we probably should share out, because we haven't shared it out publicly yet. And Kristen and I were looking, and there was no Venn diagram.
We are the framework creators.
So, yes. So we created the first Venn diagram for home to school connections.
And I know she's looking for it right now.
Yep. There it is.
Let me say.
So you have it handy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so important, because emotional skills, care for another living being, dealing with anxiety, handling rejection. Good Lord, can we make that first?
Right.
Because showing empathy, accepting loss. Okay, that's a hard one for even adults, right?
Yeah.
And how to love. Okay. We're going to come back at another time and have a discussion about the book and some of the things in here, but learning how to love. Here's where this is a contradiction that I do want to bring up for us at a later time, which is children don't know what love is.
No, yeah.
Crap. It's not real. It's not true. Stop saying that to children.
Right.
That is not true. They know how to love better than us. Yes. So we'll talk about that. We'll table that later. Here's what I wanted to read though. When 161 House Republicans voted earlier this year to eliminate all K-12 funding at the Department of Education, I was horrified. But that was just the beginning. Now, in the midst of a teacher shortage, they have introduced a bill that would kick 220,000 teachers from the classroom. We are witnessing a widespread attack on public education that should horrify all of us. Appropriations Committee ranking member Rosa DeLauro said, regardless of age or stage in life, this bill means you cannot count on government for any help. It limits women's access to abortion while stripping maternal health services and making diapers more expensive. It decimates access to preschool education and job training. People can only hope they do not get cancer or need mental health services. You will not find support from House Republicans. These awful cuts will make it very hard for people and should not even be considered by this committee. So the reason why I read that, and I wanted to be very clear about it, is that, did you hear what she said? You will, if you get cancer, right? So that means in most cases, a lot of people, when they get that cancer diagnosis, most of them believe that they're not going to survive that. So you can only hope for cancer to get support. And then you say so this is the contradiction. So people are looking for a contradiction. Here it is right here. I love children. I think children are important. We love our children, but we do not want to support them. We do not want to give them money. We want to take away their access to education, mental health services, and everything else. So how is that not a contradiction across the entire country and to all of us who we're paying tax dollars for our children to be educated so that they can have a better life than what we are currently living today?
Right. That
is my problem. This is not a political thing. This is a human rights situation. Why is it that my child is not going to be educated well enough? So we're going to potentially go back to like people not making it to 12th grade and dropping out at 8th, maybe because you don't have enough teachers and nobody wants to deal with the older kids because of all of the problems, because we didn't teach them how to manage their feelings from K through 8. Right. So when they go into 9 through 12, they're off the chain and trying to beat up everybody. And now we got problems.
Right.
So this type of stuff that's happening, the next part of our conversation is going to be, let's talk about some of the things that we're asking for the parents and the families to do, because the only way we can control how our Today we have children under age 18, but in 10 years, there's another group of people that are going to have children under the age 18. And what's going to happen is that in 10 years, if you don't look at what this looks like now, in 10 years, your education system will look completely different, and it will be well beyond fracture or repair. And I do not believe that's what we want. So what do we suggest for parents and families to do when it comes to work and trying to keep this at bay? Because they hate women, they hate children. That's how I feel. This is just my opinion. They hate women and they hate children, and it shows in everything they do with us, for us, and about us. So tell me, what can I do as a parent, or what can I do to be different or to make a difference when it comes to this?
I think the biggest thing is spreading the word and knowledge and talking about this. As an educator, I didn't know about this until Christine brought it to the forefront from hearing it at a conference. And I'm looking actively for news like this because of my work in education. And it just kind of is slipping through the cracks. Troy Titus said a minute ago as on a comment, this doesn't resemble love at all. We're in no way showing that we love our children by the way we're treating them. And let's stop and just remember, if you want to be selfish about it, great. But think about who's going to be the ones taking care of you when you're older. And this is our future that we're molding. And if we don't put the time and energy into it, we're going to pay the consequences later. Yeah. So the more people can get involved, speaking up and speaking out, speaking to school boards, speaking to your senators and your congressmen, and attending, whatever meetings you can where you hear about things that are being done. Listening to shows like this and spreading the word. One of the great feedback that I've gotten from somebody is, wow, I didn't know about this until you guys started talking about it. That's the point, to keep talking. So that would be my take.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about, before we started the show, we talked about all of those things. I would also encourage parents to stay active, and also not just parents and families, but people that do not have children, because it impacts all of us, not just people with the children in the school systems.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's a very valid point. Even, people like myself who don't have children, it's still going to be something that 20 years from now is going to have, played a large role in, how my future shapes up based on the kids that are taking care of me and doctors and all of the future that's going to be taken over.
Yeah, I even encouraged business owners.
Yes.
Really need to be watching the laws and things like that, even just their local school board meetings and the things that they're passing, because that's going to directly affect them as business owners.
That's a good point. Business owners, one of the things they're getting rid of is vocational training support for children. So if kids don't go to college, which they can't anymore because there's no more Pell Grant support, now we're taking away our vocational training support as well. So we're not getting our kids career ready, and we're taking away all career ready programs. So now we're not just killing them on the early intervention end of things. We're taking things away from children at every age across the board, and it's going to come back to bite us.
As if it has not already, if you look at it.
Right.
So remember when
we don't have enough money.
And wait until we have to hire a plumber. Just wait until we have to hire a plumber.
Right.
I know.
And
not enough of them out there, right?
Yeah.
But wait a second. First thing I thought about, so it's very interesting when you say that. So small business owners, your pool will be smaller, right? Mm-hmm. Your pool is smaller. You will not have the ability, instead of you having 25 options, you will have 2. And then neither one of them will be good. And then what happens then, right? Because then you don't have enough. But the fact that you're taking away that support. So do you remember when it was save the music, save the music, save the music, save the music? Why are we taking music out of the school, right? So we fought that battle, and we were able to, some of us were able to hold on to the music just a little bit. So now we're doing this thing with college. So if you look, college enrollment is down. That's why I want Kathy to come in and have a conversation with us, right? So Kathy's going to come and join us. I just haven't circled back. But enrollment is down.
Yep.
Because a lot of students, they don't see the value in a college education any longer. It's too costly to go. And at the end of the day, their counterparts have gone to school and they don't have the job that they went to school for. So now you've gapped out that area. So all of this is going to consistently impact. So again, you say, I love you, but okay, you can't love me if you're taking away all of my options. And the reason why I correlated back to Save the Music is because we were trying to save something because they needed us to have something to do. I need them to play a sport. I need them to play an instrument. I need that music helps in that creativity and that learning. So they needed us to hold on to that so that we could be better humans. And we had something to do. You take away the ability for children to do anything. What do they have to do but to terrorize people? What do you do? I mean, come on. If you're going to set up to terrorize, then this is not going to work. But what I am going to say is that I'm going to say this. I'm going to upset the apple cart because that's what I do. I'm born an instigator and I will die an instigator. Here's your options. You don't like what they're doing? Take your children out of school and put them in a school of your choosing that is not run by the Department of Education, and I will guarantee you will have a better education. So you say, write your congressman, go and talk to your school board, all of those things. So for all of those people who go out and do those things and they still come back feeling as though they don't have options, trust me, you still at least have two options. Two, I can guarantee you there are two options that you have, and neither one of them are ones you thought about. Me personally, if my kids were in this, I would pull them out of school and I will homeschool, or I will put them in a different school that the curriculum and the value systems were exactly where I needed my children to be. The point is that our money pays for our schools. If our schools are not doing what our schools are supposed to do with our children, put them somewhere else, allow them to have your tax dollars, but put them in a place where you will be able to reclaim your tax dollars later, because your children will have the education you want them to have and not the education that has been dished out to them as if they were poverty and that they were never going to see anything more than $25,000 a year.
I'm glad you brought that up because Nicole commented, who funds these options? And it's us, as taxpayers, we're the ones funding. It's just the government deciding how to use that money. So Nicole, it's us.
Yes.
It's our money and they're deciding how to use it. And that's the part that scares the daylight.
That is the problem. 100%. So I'm explaining this other part. This is what I'm going to say to you. So this is just a correlation, but this is how the money runs. Do you know that when we have a shooting, a police officer involved shooting, and that there is an investigation and the finding is that the police officer was in the wrong, and everybody's like, we need justice. Give me money, because money is the only thing that hurts you bad enough to not want to do it again. Yes. Right. So then they go and they sue, and then they get this money. Guess where the money comes from? It's our money again.
Taxpayer money.
They pay off the family that was harmed with our tax dollars again. And so we fight this, and then they turn around and give us our money back and our neighbors' money just to make you quiet. So we are funding all of these activities. And when we cut off the money, people will start to respond, and small business will show you that. So what happens is when you stop being able to sell popcorn, you got to close your doors, because the popcorn is supposed to pay for your lights and your building. So you no longer sell popcorn, you no longer have lights or building. That's what should happen in other areas, because that's the only message that people understand is when you lose money that helps you fund your life, you start to behave slightly different because you don't like the new life that you've been dished out.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And Nicole just commented, ridiculous that the taxpayers can't choose how we want, to be dispersed within the educational system. It doesn't make sense.
Nope. Yeah, we can control our money, but we have to stand up for something. That's the problem. And a lot of times, a lot of people don't know what
we don't even know.
They don't know. If it wasn't for me, like I said before he came on, I was like, am I doing enough? Am I doing the right things? But I'm bringing awareness, because as an instigator, I shine the light in dark places, in places where people don't want to go visit. And is it comfortable for me? No, not necessarily. But I'm not one person that says, no, if it's wrong, let's have a conversation about how to solve that, so that we have one corner that's not wrong when we turn our backs on it. When we turn and say, okay, you're good, and we need to walk away from it, we need to know it's okay. But we can't, but if we keep letting people or things be in those dark places and not having conversations, we don't solve anything.
Absolutely.
Right.
So I appreciate everybody's comments and everything like that. Thank you, Nicole, Troy, Chandra, Cindy. Thank you for visiting with us and having a conversation. This conversation is meant for all of us to have. Have this go. I put the link for the House Republican funding bill, so you can go and take a look. We will continue to have these conversations, because they dumped a bunch of things in here that we didn't even talk about. And we're going to continue to have those conversations, because the mortality rate for women, for pregnant moms, is a problem. And then if they're taking away maternal rights, that's another thing that impacts a child in a negative way. You know what I mean? I had somebody tell me today that one of the parents says, I was going to abort him. You said that to her in 30 seconds of meeting her. What is this kid hearing? Right? What do they know? What are they? So that parent messed with the child's mindset and the way he sees himself, because she felt she had no options for her for her pregnancy. That's not cool. And more of that can show up. So those are other things that we'll be able to talk about. So I'll go ahead and allow you guys to have your. Oh, wait, let's talk about Nicole one more time. I love you, Nicole. Let's go. One more time, Nicole. One more time. I wonder how many of the affected families of shootings who sue take a portion of that money to get therapy or support their survivor child needs to deal with the trauma.
Who knows? And that's scary. No, it's not an automatic. She just said perhaps the money given in a lawsuit would be better spent to fund facilities to support the entire family. They are all affected. Absolutely.
Well, it's a very good idea.
Yep. Well, and that's
we're saying, yay, this is what we're here for, to provide options, because they are. So when you're in the tunnel, you don't know the outside is raining.
Right.
So let us help you to learn that outside is raining, and you just got to put your slickers on or whatever, and then inside you're okay. But let us help you, because what they're doing in education and health and all this other stuff impacts all of us significantly. Maybe not today, but maybe later, right? And that's just something we have to take a look at. So ladies, go ahead, wrap it up. What do you want to say for the last part of this? And then we'll come back with a new contradiction next week. Thank you, Kathy.
You want to go first, Christine?
So my brain, I'm like, I was hoping you go first. So I think it's really important that we stay abreast of these laws and laws that are coming through, because there's going to be more of these laws. And as Kristen said, and also Tabitha, I don't think either one of you knew about this law. I also did not know about this law. And I have information coming through to me through my emails about laws that are coming up, laws that we need to be made aware of. This was not even on my radar. So it's making sure that we are being responsible citizens and making sure that we are staying abreast of current laws or things that are coming down the pipeline. So then that way we can let others know what to look for and how to respond, and how they can become more active in their communities and also in the government if they feel like they want their voice heard.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely. And I don't want to cut you off, but you're absolutely right. I think getting our voices heard and getting more and more people aware is so key. One of the things, cliffhanger wise, I'll leave with is we're just talking about education right now. And that bill is so jam packed with so many other things that affect birth to death age wise. everybody will be affected. We didn't even get into the social services and health and human services components or the healthcare components. I mean, there are so many pieces. It's not just education that they're decimating here. Mm-hmm. And I think the more people realize, okay, well, maybe, it's, a lot of times education can be very political. This is not just education, though. It's everything that takes care of people the way that it should, whether it's mental health, physical health, social, emotional health, like we were talking about, all of it's part of it.
Right. And I think it's very important to note that for sure. Yeah. So, I'm glad that this is what we've chosen to have a conversation about this year. I feel as though we'll have this conversation because we'll want to break down a lot of different pieces, and the contradictions actually exist inside the bill. I cannot understand why we live or haunt our lives under the umbrella of a contradiction. We contradict everything we say and do, and that's a problem in itself. But I do appreciate the conversation. This was a great one. I think we gave everybody an option and a solution for what they can do for themselves. But keep in mind, the decision is yours. And if you don't want to do anything about it, cool, don't do anything about it. But when it comes back and bites you in 10 years, don't say you weren't told, because we did inform you enough to let you know. And I've been beating the drum for a while. So it's not as if, you say, oh, it was a one and done situation. No, not an option. But I do appreciate you. Thank you very much for spending your time with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kathy, let me know when you're ready, ma'am. It's all right. We got you. But for sure, same time, same channel, next week. Remember, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate the support and look forward to you visiting us again next week. Same time, same place. Until then, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. If you have an interest in discussing a contradiction or would like to be on our live show, please let us know and send us a direct message.